good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. You know, a lot of us have questions around love. We have questions around finding that right person. You know, we hear a lot of words and terminology nowadays, and one of the terms that we've heard is twin flame. What is that? And, you know, I find it interesting on this show because as you've been listening for the show for as long as you have, for anybody out there that's listening right now, you know that you know a lot about me, and you know that I like to find people that have that expertise about something that I don't necessarily really understand, but I'm very open to it and I'm very interested in what it truly is. So joining me in studio live today is Piper Willoughby. Piper just wrote an amazing book called Musings on Weirdness in Love and Meditation. And she's going to be here in studio to discuss twin flames, what it is, how to know if you're in that type of relationship, and the list goes on. Piper, so glad to have you in studio today. How are you doing?
Yes, I'm great, Ashley. Thank you for having me. How are you?
Doing great. And I'm just glad to have you, and I'm glad for us to talk about this discussion because this terminology has come up before, and a lot of us don't really understand it, or we don't know how to really get a grasp around this idea, and I know you're the expert on this. So I guess let's just jump in. You know, tell us about what a twin flame is. Explain more about that, because I've heard it, but I don't really understand it.
Yeah, so a twin flame, I think the most popular definition is that it's one soul that is split into two bodies, and it's a very intense relationship because of that. I tend to think of it as it could be two souls who resonate at the same frequency. And unlike soulmates who are more like on a harmonic frequency, these two people have the same energetic frequency. They share an energy field. And that's another reason why it could be discordant at times.
So tell me what it's like to share an energy field with somebody else. What does that mean?
Well, if it means that, yeah, that's a really good question. The way I see it is, it's like we have we're from the same oversoul, okay? And within that oversoul, there are like several segments, several pieces of you, essences of you, parts of your soul. And one of these is this soul that is the other half of you down. It sounds kind of romantic, but part of your soul, right down here on this earth in this incarnation. And then what happens, like when you meet this person, and the reason it's different than a regular soulmate relationship is really because it's just, they rip your heart wide open, and it's absolute sheer bliss at first, and then it becomes comforting, then it becomes challenging, then it becomes sort of devastating before it goes back to challenging again. And in other words, they turn your world upside down, and you get really shaken up deeply, like in your beliefs, and your emotions are very intense. And from it catalyzes you into all of this growth, and your self journey, like your inner journey, like your spiritual awakening, essentially.
So let me ask you, how many people do you think actually meet their twin flames? I mean, because it sounds very interesting and it sounds very cool, but are we destined to meet them, or how does that work?
I don't even know if everybody has a twin flame. I mean, I can't imagine why they wouldn't. There's a lot of different theories, and in my viewpoint, I think that the label shouldn't matter so much. We shouldn't place so much importance on it. I think that there were an original group of twin flames who came down here in this incarnation and set the template. We're sort of here to set this template for a higher vibration of love on our planet. And I know that more and more people are experiencing these sort of intense dynamic relationships like they've never had before. You know, the kind of knock your socks off, what happened to me, having to go and like thinking you already know what a soulmate is. Why is this experience just blowing your socks off and blowing your mind? And then you can come upon this information. And I think that it doesn't, are you twin flames? Maybe, maybe not, but the label doesn't matter because you're still having this amazing experience.
So let me ask you, this is a very interesting subject matter, to write about. What was your muse, or what really got you into writing about this subject in the first place?
I'm giggling because my muse is my twin, and I was journaling quite a bit, and when I was going through like some very difficult times and having to dig deep into my fears, mostly of like rejection and abandonment, and it was very cathartic for me to write, and and the, and I it was helpful for me to see like where I was in my process, and was I really completing, like really digging deep enough, and was I and I realized that there's a lot of twin flames out there in public, like Facebook groups and whatnot, who hold this pain inside of them because they're not with that person, and they can't understand why it's not happening. And what they really need to do is look at themselves and accept that things are exactly the way they're supposed to be in this moment, even if you're not with the person that you think you're supposed to be with. So because of all of that pain involved, I thought it would be nice to write something for that twin flame community that they could read enjoyably, because it's a novel that will also show them really what it takes to walk this path and sort of come back full circle to yourself again.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think there's a lot of folks out there listening to the show right now that, have been in a relationship. Maybe it was, quite tumultuous, quite emotional, and they're no longer with that person. And I think there's a lot of people out there right now, too, who are married in relationships who they love their spouse, their wife, their husband, but it's not fireworks.
Right.
It's a relationship and they love each other, but and I think there's a lot of folks that say, well, what kind of relationship am I in? And I think there's a lot of people out there that have been in a very powerful, emotionally sparked relationship, and that relationship didn't seem to last the test of time, maybe.
Because it's challenging. And I think what happens in these relationships is the people, you want to be with that person. They both want to be together, but it is very intense. And so you trigger each other all the time, and you're constantly looking. They're like, they mirror your issues. So you're constantly looking in your mirror at, oh my God, why do I feel this way again? Because it's something else in myself that I haven't looked at. Oh my God, here it comes again. Why do I have to keep doing all this work with this person? And they might not even be aware of it, depending on how much contact or interaction you have with them, or how open they are to even the idea of this process. But it really is the way it works. And I think that it these relationships can be beautiful and long lasting if both partners have done the inner work. But I think the reason so many twins don't come together is because one or both parties aren't like really completing their own process to allow for that to happen.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I do think, as a therapist and a counselor and seeing clients in private practice, I have clients often talking about, the relationship or the girl or the guy that got away. And a lot of times you hear, there was an intense connection, and one person just, it was their issues that
Right.
really got in the way of that relationship.
Yeah, but see, it's easy to say it's their issues because then you're sort of finger pointing, and you point your finger, there's in one direction, there's what, three fingers pointing back at you, right? So,
Mhm.
you always have to look at, it's not necessarily their issue, it's just where they're at in this place and time, and they're not ready yet, to take that next step, maybe for their own growth. And then come to the acceptance of that and love them completely unconditionally, in spite of it, in spite of the things that you're upset about. Love them for those things that are teaching you lessons.
I agree with you, but I think there's certain things that are deal breakers. I've had
Yeah.
clients that, whether it's drug addiction and the other person refuses to get help, whether
Yeah.
it's an abuse situation and the other person refuses to get treatment. I'm not an advocate of somebody sticking in a relationship, after trial 5 and you've done everything you can and you really have put yourself out there, not just saying that you're doing the right thing, but actually doing it. And really, because one of the things that I believe in relationships is you really need to get everything out there in the open. You need to be honest and open. You need to always communicate at the highest belief system. You got to say the right things based on truth. And if you do that constantly over a period of time, if the other person's not jumping in to do that, that's one thing. But you got to try. You
Yeah.
got to work at it. But I do
Yeah,
find
you
that
have
some
to
of that
work at
has
it.
to happen.
Definitely. Even relationships that aren't as intense as these, but are still very good. All relationships take work. All of them do, right? And yeah, then that's the beauty of the bond, I think, especially over a long period of time, is that growth that to get on a track where you're like working on that together. And it's a cool thing. But I do agree with you. Yeah, there are definitely situations that are severe, like addiction and abuse, that are are hard to you know that should be walked away from, I guess, is what I want to say there.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that because I think sometimes we're in the right place at the right time where we need to be. It's all about timing,
Yeah.
and you're right about that. Let me ask you. So in the book, I guess your main characters are Annie and Alex. How do they serve as mirrors for all of us on this path, no matter where we might be? Because I think your characters are very deep and interesting.
I think the way they serve as mirrors is that they're telling a story that is very human, right? It's raw. There's beauty, love, pain. The book's got it all, but it's exposed. And I think when you're reading it, the reader tends to very often think, "Oh my God, I felt the same way. Oh, I remember this," or "Yes, yes, yes, I can totally identify with that." And that's in a way how how you can become more self-aware through the reading of the book.
Nice. Let me ask you. Okay, so I'm interested. I believe that I've had some relationships in my past that were pretty awesome, but they unfortunately were not going to happen. And I've been married for about 16 years, and I believe that I found, I guess, what people would consider a soulmate because I felt like we've been around each other many times before. But for
Hmm.
anybody out there that's trying to figure out their twin flame, which I think might be different from soulmate, what are some of the signs that you're actually with your twin flame? Because I think some people would like to know that because they're wondering if they are in it or how to look for it, I guess.
I don't think it's anything you can look for. You're right. If you have a twin flame and you are supposed to meet them in this lifetime, it's going to happen. The universe is going to find a way to make that happen. And really, it's not something you even a great. I don't think you can really look for love. I think when you're not looking for it is when you find it. So um, when you meet your twin, though, like, you feel such frenetic energy surging through you. There's this like immediate sense of knowing them at a soul level, an immediate sense that you just understand who they are. And even on a human level, you just met them, and there's like electricity in the air, and you can't get them off your mind. It's almost like they become like imprinted on you. Yeah, it's like tattooed on your brain. Um, and and for many twins, I think their world kind of falls apart because it does instigate that spiritual awakening, and we know that awakening process takes us down a path of change and growth. And so I think that these are some of the things that indicate that it's a twin and not a soul mate.
Interesting. Has anybody ever met their twin flame, but the twin flame happened to be gay?
Yes. Actually, I have friends in the twin flame community who are gay and have gay twin flames, and I have friends in the twin flame community who were or are married, straight, but their twin is the same sex as them. And one of them left her husband and went to be with her twin flame, female twin flame, because I
Wow.
love her. Yeah. So I don't really know that whatever your gender is matters. Love is love, right?
Right.
So
That's true. No, I agree with you. I mean, but I do think that we have so many labels in our communities nowadays that it gets a little heavy after a while. But yeah,
it sure does. Yeah.
because it's like, well, how many labels are we going to create, and how many different indications of, it's like we're us. I happen to be female. That's great, but it's like I look at life and I think that we all put these perimeters on everything and defining everything. I think buzzwords are like our deal nowadays in this type of time and era. It's interesting. Being from what I do for a living, I'll have folks come in and be like, well, there was triangulation and da 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 da, and I believe there's dual diagnosis and no no no, and it's like constant all these buzzwords that we're all
I know.
using to divide ourselves from who we truly
Uh,
are.
when I talk to this one particular friend of mine, I give him some stuff, and he always say, "Okay, thanks for the download." And I think that is really funny because download is information you get from like the cosmos, like
Hmm.
from your guides or your higher self or something, and he uses it in like more of a 3D business kind of format, and I really love that. But yes, we are full of buzzwords and short little bleeps and memes, right? Like makes it for a difficult world to actually quiet your mind so that you can take this journey for yourself, with yourself, for yourself, that whole self-love thing.
Well, I think too.
So
I like what you're saying because I'm a big believer in finding your true self, and I've written books upon it, and I wrote a 10-day challenge book on how to do it too. Because the thing is that it's not about going out. Our first deal in life is like we go out, we try to find someone who loves us,
yeah.
and it's always so wonky. And it's based on this old thought process of if somebody else loves me, then I'm fine. When in
Right.
reality, we lose our entire. It's like we lose our mind on it. It's like we have to find our own unconditional self love before we ever look outside of that. Because if we don't find that, unfortunately, when people come in and they love you and they leave, well, they're going to take their love with them, and
This is
that's it.
it's such an interesting topic because I'm thinking about we're not really taught to love ourselves. We're taught to love others. We're taught to show love for them by doing things for them, and we're taught in a way to search for love from others as well. Like even as kids, right? Little kids, they want acceptance from their parents and admiration and everything. But how do you teach someone to love themselves from an early age? Like we're saying things like, "Oh, go buy a new outfit. Go spend some money. Go get that car." That's not self love. That's just instant gratification. I mean, we kind of have it backwards. Yeah, and the more you can only give love to another in the amount that you have it for yourself. True. Also, so
That's very true, and
mm,
that's what I work with clients of all ages. And it's funny because when you and I spoke a few days ago, I was thinking about this because that is one of the things, the wonkiest thing that we have going on in our society and culture, and I think it really is in every culture and every society except for a few Aborigine and some Native American cultures. But I do feel like
mhm.
we kind of have the cart before the horse, and the problem is that most of the time it doesn't happen until 30s if you're lucky, 40s,
If you're lucky,
50s,
absolutely
60s, and then you go, "Oh my
right.
god, what the heck have I been doing this whole time?"
Yeah, I know. And yeah, I'm pushing 60 here. I was pretty old when I woke up. And then I found out that most of the people in my age group didn't want to walk that path. Like a lot of them were so settled in their ways already. Whereas for me, it was a complete rebirth. It gave me my passion back. That's another thing that reuniting with my twin after 25 years, all of a sudden I had all of this creative, um, like possibility that seemed to be in my, peripheral. Like I could feel it. It was back, that passionate desire to just like always be growing and learning and doing and exploring. And it, I think it's so worth that journey, that path, that right there to me is worth it. And I think it's a little unfortunate that some of us are stuck in our ways and don't want to venture down this path.
Well, and I have clients that come in and they'll say, "Hey, I think I'm too old," and I'll be like, "You're never too old for this." And the thing you want to do is you never want to have that regret. It's never too old to wake up. It's never too old to connect with your spiritual side. It's never too old to figure out who you are and to love yourself. And it's like, because I think that all we have besides that is a road of regret that we get. And I think that this is a very
Yeah.
interesting book to opening one's eyes, because I think and I agree with you. I think you're right. It's like a lot of people choose to see the problems in other people, or they choose to diagnose the other person. And it's like we're all little bits of everything. And it's like really looking inside of ourselves to understand, who are we? What do we stand for? Do we understand
Yes.
ourselves, and can we embrace
and
those
then
things?
and right, and then we start questioning our belief systems, um, and then they start falling away. And yeah, it's an unbelievable process. We have to question who we really are and find out why. Um, I hate to say this, but I feel like it's almost, this disease in our society where deep, deep down inside of us, there's a spot, there's a wound that we always want to keep hidden, from ourselves, not just the rest of the world, and we don't want to touch it because we don't love us. We don't love ourselves there, and um, you know, the yin and the yang, right? We're always going to have our shadow side, and we need to embrace that part of ourselves as well because that's our human side. That's what we're down here to experience, are those emotions. Well, all emotions, not just the hard ones, the heavy ones. So I feel like I'm getting off here a little bit, but it's definitely never too late. Never.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and I agree with there's a part of us that we have to get right, and I think some people there's like all of them that they have to get right with, but I do think
Yeah.
some of us have like more like little slivers and things that we have to work out, and I agree with you. It's very. I like when people are very open, authentic, and vulnerable because it really gets to the nitty gritty. I was in a meeting years ago and I said some stuff about myself and I'm one of those big believers is like, why paint a picture that's all hunky dory and unicorns when it's not? I mean, why do we have to go on with this placation of BS, based on some sort of idea of society that says that we're a good person if we do X, Y, Z, or we're successful. And it's just like, I find that social media encourages, and I hate to say this because there are some sides of social media that are good, but also
Yeah,
social media encourages this BS to flourish. Let
I
me
know.
you know what I'm saying? Let me show myself in this light, even though I took this picture 17,000 times and I'm in
Right.
front of someone's car that's not mine, and the list goes on. And it's a very interesting dynamic, especially in love, too. Have you seen how one of the first things somebody wants to put up on their social media is, I'm in a relationship?
I know. I feel like it's nobody's business. It really is nobody's business if I'm in a relationship or not, right?
Isn't
Yeah,
that
it is
crazy,
interesting.
though?
And
It's like, do they
it
stop in
is
the middle
very
of the
crazy.
date and put it on there?
Yeah. And romantic love is the same way. It's like the fairy tale, the romantic movies. Some of them seem to be twin flamey kind of movies, and they always end in the connection coming into this beautiful marriage or something, defined by our society because that's what we're supposed to do. Or the Disney movies, right? That my children definitely loved when they were growing up, and uh, you know we need to we need to pull ourselves back and think about, what is relationship? What is love? Can you love someone just as much being with them not being with them as if you were with them,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's so true.
Or
And that's one of the interesting parts too. And I love to get your commentary on this. When I'm working with folks and they'll be like, well, I'm not supposed to love them anymore. I think a lot of us get into this mindset of you're only supposed to love one person on this planet at one given time. And if you're outside of that parameter, you're a really, really bad person and you really need to check yourself for it. And it's like I sit there and I go, what is this? What are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you mean you can't love this person? They're like, well, I'm like, well, wait, there's different types of love. I'm not talking about you're having sex with everybody on God's green creation, but I am saying there is unconditional love, and you can unconditionally love somebody and not live with them, not be with them, not marry them, end a relationship, but people feel like they got to pull it back.
Right. They do, because if that unconditional love has a sense behind it that's stronger than liking you a lot as a really good friend, then you're in trouble because you've broken the rule. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, I certainly always believed you could only love one person at a time until it happened to me. Right.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy though? I mean, it's crazy.
And that blew my mind. I really had to think long and hard about that belief system. I didn't even realize that it was a belief system, right? I just thought that's the way it was. So there's a lot around love that I think it constrains us. The societal definitions, religion, all of that. So,
and the way we were raised, because our parents, they didn't. I mean, that people get on, they go, "Oh, I don't want to sit there and complain about my parents," and then other people complain about their parents, and it's like, well, okay, first off, we are a product of our environment, and that's why the show is called Perspectives. By the way, is that we have these ideas that we're raised around, and in order to really make changes to these belief systems, these doctrines, you may say, we have to live a life, and through that life living, through those experiences, through challenging the status quo, we create new set of perspectives. And that's why it's called Live Your True Life Perspectives, because it's not just because I'm raised around my mom and dad doesn't mean that I take on their perspective. I have changed lots of things in my life. Religion, countless stuff. Okay. Yeah. And it's like, I did it because I realized, because I woke up to my truth, whether that truth is somebody else's truth or not, doesn't matter. I woke up to my truth, but I had to realize that a lot of the stuff that we have been sold as bill of goods really don't hold water. And one of those things is the fact that we can't love multiple people. Like, that can put somebody in a tailspin. If you're with somebody and you're in love with them, and then you meet somebody and you fall in love with them, you start feeling like a bad person, like something's really wrong with you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. How do you change that? How do you change that in your own life so that you can still love both people and not feel like you are doing something that's bad? You
have to change your values in your belief system. If you change your belief system and say, well, I've changed my belief system from the fact that I no longer have to just love one person, because I realize that that's not based on love and light. That's not based on a spiritual journey, unconditional love for mankind. When I get that, then all of a sudden I realize that the belief that I had was limited. And so I just need to change that belief. And then do my values really change, or do my values change a little bit with that belief? And then I can assume whatever I'm doing. But otherwise, if we don't change that belief system, then our action becomes a problem. And then we beat our own self down for what we find as a sin, I guess.
Yeah, and there's a lot more involved in it than that too. I think it depends on the nature of the connection, right? Because it's not just having unconditional love for that person. I think like you meet somebody else and you have this great other relationship that's been ongoing for many years, and all of a sudden you have these deep, intense feelings for this new person, and you can love them unconditionally, but you also might want to love them in other ways. Mm-hmm. And, those are where the questions get really heavy, I think. And again, it's all like how you choose to live your life, and there should really be no judgment.
Well, and I agree with you, and I do find people that are in peril in that situation where they've been married for 20 years, out of the blue, not trying, they meet somebody randomly, and literally it's a fight within, and many oftentimes, they choose to ignore that and to just stick with what they got, and to some degree it can be painful and paralyzing because they're quote doing the right thing end quote,
Yep.
but they also wonder what could have been, and I think it gets a little depressive a little bit too. I mean, they believe they're doing the right thing, but then there's that conundrum. And I think there's a lot more people probably walking the earth right now that are dealing with that situation than we really even know.
I think you're right. I think you're right. And it's interesting. I had a friend who's a therapist who did this thing with her husband, um, older couple, and been married many many years. And she did this thing where once a year she would think about whether she still wanted to be with him or not, because she never wanted to feel like she was obligated to spend the rest of her life with him just simply because they were married. And so they'd sit down once a year and have this like, uh, well, she would sit down once a year and go through this whole process of, is this how I want to continue to live? Is this the best thing for me? Is this, and I thought that was kind of cool because it doesn't just slam the book down on, okay, we're together for the rest of our lives. And I think you're right that a lot of people, um, who choose to stay with their partner, and there's nothing wrong with that, and especially, I know, I'm sure there's a lot of love. I know there's a lot of love in those relationships, but also they're, in a sense, um they could, like you said, they maybe feel like they've settled for less because all of a sudden they see this new horizon. There is like this new direction that their life could take that would be potentially more exciting, or something that would spur them in new directions and in growth, but choose to stay in the first scenario. And there's no right or wrong there either. It's an individual thing, but I know that sometimes you have to move out of those relationships that you thought would never end, even in love and compassion. Right? You don't have to do it in any horrible sort of shape or form, just in love. And knowing that, maybe it isn't in our best interest to spend the rest of our lives together. But yeah, we've had a great, successful 25 years together. It doesn't mean that we have to spend the rest of our lives together. And a lot of those interactions and decisions, I think, are based on how codependent the couple is.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of that.
That makes
A lot of
sense.
that in our society, and I think a lot of the definition of romantic love is really kind of codependent love.
That's true. I agree with you. I mean, for sure. And I think it's a challenge too to overcome that because again, codependency is something that, I believe is somewhat learned based on our
Oh
fact of
yeah.
unconditional love that we don't have for ourselves, and then we're looking for that love attachment and that acceptance from other people, and then that's where we get that codependency, and then I mean, it's like a sweater that won't come off, It's it's like, help me get out of this. I can't get my head out of it. I can't get it out. Um,
Yeah.
but it's true. You're
Yeah.
like, help me. I can't get out. But that's really what it is, and I do agree with you. And I also think sometimes too is that there's other people that are in marriages and are in relationships that they really need to take a look at it and really say, hey, is there anything I can do to spruce this up, to get back in it, to put both feet back in, and really focus on that? Is that something too that I should do? And am I just, jumping out? Um,
Well, like we said earlier, all relationships take work, and it's not just work at one point in time. It's ongoing. Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely worth putting time and effort into any relationship that you're in, if you y- y- you know if you want it to last and know that you're always still on the same page. Yeah.
It's like creating anything. It's like creating any sort of business, any sort of foundation opportunity. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be good days and bad days, but it's like really, and that's one of the things that I think is paramount is that, if anybody's listening, if you're in a current relationship and you are having challenging times, just to really, really try to work through that, because whether or not you stay together or not is really not the issue. Even if you don't, if you've done everything you can, you don't have that regret. You feel good about yourself, and you can actually look yourself in the mirror and say, I really did everything I could.
Right.
And that's a powerful place to be at, I think.
It's a great place to be, because you know that you put the effort in to see what could be done about it, right? And that's worth a lot. That's love right there,
Yeah.
even if it ends.
Even if it ends. And that means that you love the other person and you love yourself enough to actually walk down that road, take that journey, and spend the time to really figure that out, because you never want to look back and go, God, I wish I would have done XYZ,
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me ask you, what are some of the takeaways? So if folks are, looking toward the book and they want to check it out, what are some of the takeaways with Annie and Alex's journey that you think really can inspire, a lot of our listeners in their day-to-day life?
Well, I would have to say that I think as you awaken, in central theme of the book, you come to understand that the journey to love isn't about finding the one. It's about releasing the one. It's about finding yourself. It's about through surrender and letting go, and no expectations, no attachments, and following your own soul's guidance. And I think it's always important to remember that, like, being in love and being love are two very different things.
Powerful stuff there. Powerful stuff, Piper. So, where can the listeners here connect with you on social media? I'll put the links in the show and all the postings as well. But where can they connect with you and kind of follow your journey?
You can read some excerpts on my website at piperwilloughby.com. I'm on Instagram and Facebook as author Piper Willoughby. And I do have another book coming out, a sequel to the first one, sometime this year.
Ooh, I can't wait to check that one out. I like this one. I like this one a lot.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah.
And where can people buy the book too?
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, it is available on Amazon and on Balboa Press. And the links are direct from, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and my website. So shouldn't be an issue there. And it's kind of a long title, but it's a good title.
I love the title of the book. I love it. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Did you come up with that? Musings on Weirdness and Love and Meditation? Did you just did it come to you one day?
This, and this was before I even knew I was writing a book. I came up with this, and I'm like, God, that'd be a great title for a book, right? And then about 3 months later, this book started pouring out of me. I'm like, whoa! So it's kind of fun.
That's awesome. I can't wait to read the next one, and I can't wait to have you back on the show for sure.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that. It's been really nice being able to spend some time with you.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to it, and definitely all the links will be up there for everybody listening. The links are here in the information, so you can find it and find and follow Piper and get the copy of the first book, and we'll await the second book. Lasting words for our audience, Piper.
Well, I know it sounds sort of, overused and said a lot, but it really is important to be love. And remember, on Valentine's Day this year, to love yourself. Love yourself first.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
Okay, thanks for having me, Ashley. Take care.
Great show with Piper. Love that. I think there's a lot that we can learn from this because, one of the things that we really touched on in the conversation today was the fact that, you can love other people. And I think there'll be people that come into your lives in different ways, different seasons. And it's like really allowing ourselves to be honest with ourselves, to embrace our life, and to really be mindful in the moment. I think a lot of us confuse, love with kind of just jumping into the next relationship because we don't want to deal with our fear or we don't want to be alone. And I think that leads us into relationships that are really quite toxic. And we find ourselves there repeatedly, like we're on some sort of ride at the theme park that never ends. And I think we really got to get right with ourselves and determine, what do we need to learn about ourselves to really create not only internally amazing unconditional love, but also outwardly giving that to other people in the proper way. And I find that the twin flames and this concept is very interesting because I do think when you begin to get really, really right with yourself and you really get to understand yourself and you let go of the codependency and all, it can be very powerful. I also feel like, looking into our own relationships and understanding like the current relationship that you're in, whether it's a girlfriend or boyfriend, whether you're seeing someone, whether you've been in a marriage for 20, 30 years, really looking at that marriage, looking at that relationship, what can I do to facilitate a better relationship? What can I do to add to the situation in a positive way? Are there things that I can do right now? And I find that if you're in a relationship right now and you're really struggling and you're not really able to see the forest through the trees, we've got to start somewhere. I work with clients and we talk about this kind of stuff because relationships can get really out of hand really quick. And usually what happens is it's not really quick. It's over a period of a very long time, steady going, routine. And we allow things to get really out of order. And then we look at it and we get so overwhelmed because there's relationship issues, there's problems at the home, and we've let things just get so out of whack and fester that we get overwhelmed that can something really actually be changed? Can we actually do something to change this? Can we actually overcome this? Can we move past this? Is there a way to do that? And I think we've really got to look at that to determine if that's possible. But we've got to do everything we can. I think any relationship, even if it's not going to work, is worth fighting for. And it's worth putting in the effort, because is it really fighting for something when you're actually just putting in effort to see if something is meant to be? And what does meant to be mean? Because I think meant to be is like, hey, I'm working really hard on this to make this happen. People talk about meant to be careers, meant to be this, meant to be that, but how much work went into that meant to be? And I think that all the work that we put in relationships in the very beginning, in the dating process and the honeymoon, really needs to be looked at and understood, and really look at those types of things and say, what am I doing to bring that energy back? What am I doing to try to create awesomeness in this relationship? And what can I do? And if you're doing everything you can, and you're really honestly doing everything you can, then you can really sleep well at night. And you can understand that maybe your spouse or girlfriend or boyfriend might come around and inspire them to do so. And if they don't, you got to make your decision. But the point is that we got to love ourselves first. And it shows us that we love ourselves by actually doing what's right in our current relationships, pushing the envelope, and really going the distance to figure out who we truly are. And in the process, learning who the other person is. I think Piper had some really amazing stuff to talk about. And I think some of you out there might be saying that, hey, I think I'm with a soulmate, or hey, I think I'm with a twin flame. Finding out that information, really going and really observing that, looking and reading Piper's book as well. And for some of you out there that goes, well, I don't know, I care about this person. Well, if you care about them and you love them, you got to pursue, you got to figure it out. And we owe it to ourselves, because remember, the first words that come out of our mouth, we hear them first. So they need to be at the highest good when we're talking to somebody else, when we're talking to ourselves. When we do that, we do what's right for everybody concerned. We do what's just right and reasonable, and we live a good life. So for all you out there, I want you to be happy, healthy. I want you to find that unconditional love. I want you to resonate with the power of that. I want you to embrace it, and I want you to see it. And some of us, it's a new thing. It's a new topic. It's something we're not used to. We weren't raised around it. But this is why this show is called Perspectives. Because you can change your entire life, what you feel, what you think, your beliefs, your values, your actions, based on who you are, not who your parents were, not the environment of your upbringing, just you. That's some powerful stuff. I hope this shows resonate with you. Please share it with your friends and family. And in the meantime, live your true life perspectives with me, your host, Ashley Burgess. Well, I'll be back this time in 3 shakes.